Even more stuff that I don't like. Number 1, steel supply pipes. Galvanized steel pipe has been mostly discontinued from its use in water supply piping, but black, stainless, or galvanized steel pipe is still occasionally used decoratively on the last section that protrudes from the wall to supply pedestal sinks or toilets. If you're going to be dumb and do this, then you should throw in the couple of extra bucks to get stainless nipples. Number 2, brass or stainless drains. I run across a lot of stainless or brass bathroom sink drains, or brass tub drains. These are significantly more expensive than PVC or polypropylene drains, and they corrode pretty quickly. Plastic drains last forever. The yellow bronze alloy used in many of the newer water supply fittings can last a really long time, but an inferior alloy is used to make drains for manufacturing reasons. You really don't need your drain to be decorative, even if you have a pedestal sink, and spending extra money for a decorative but ephemeral drain is just ignorant. The negative experience of having a water leak vastly outweighs the positive experience of a decorative piece of invisible infrastructure. Number 3, pedestal sinks. They look kinda nice, but installation and maintenance are more difficult on pedestal sinks. They don't have any storage space, and if anyone sits on them, they might tear the water supply pipes right out of the wall. Some pedestal sinks are drilled onto 2x6 blocking in between the studs, but I've seen some just drilled onto half-inch sheetrock with drywall anchors. That's just asking for a flood. One caretaker told me that he preferred pedestal sinks because they don't melt when exposed to water. The fiberboard used to make basically all bathroom cabinets and vanities does melt pretty quickly when exposed to water, but a liberal use of caulk and trim can mitigate this to a large extent. And when they do degrade, they're pretty easy, cheap, and fast to replace. And their failures are generally less catastrophic than pedestal sinks. Number 4, fiberboard doors. I think that making a door out of fiberboard is a cheap way to get a fire rating, which may be necessary off an attached garage or where a unit attaches to a common area in an apartment over 3 stories. Fire doors should only be used where absolutely necessary because they are heavy, expensive, and generally difficult to repair. Unfortunately, I encountered fiberboard doors installed on all the balconies of a property that I worked at, where I don't think that the fire rating was necessary and rain degraded the doors pretty quickly. Fiberboard, gypsum, and many of the other compounds used to achieve a fire rating can't handle water, are less kick and scratch resistant than wood, and often can't be glued, screwed, or nailed back together if they receive serious damage. Steel doors are probably my favorite because they won't scratch, can't be kicked in, and are generally lower maintenance. I suspect that they tend to be lighter than the alternatives, but they certainly aren't light. They're usually filled with foam in order to boost their fire rating, and that usually helps insulate against sound and heat. Many people associate steel doors with commercial or medical buildings, or with apartments in dangerous neighborhoods, but they make nicer models that don't even look like steel. Number 5, top-loading washers. My main gripe with top loaders is that they look cheap, but they also use a ton of water, which can exacerbate flooding if anything goes wrong. They are also rougher on clothes and can bind and rip large items. I've had a couple of work orders where tenants just complained that they couldn't wash their blankets in their top loader without them getting all knotted around the agitator and damaged. Fortunately, top loaders are falling out of favor because many front loaders can be stacked, and people are always trying to save space. Stacking machines can make maintenance a lot more work, but adding sliding pads to the feet and having adequate space to move them can make it easier. Swapping a stacked machine should always be a two-person job. Washing machines are pretty reliable though, and you shouldn't need to swap them very often, unless they are from the Fisher & Paykel company. I worked at a property with a bunch of Fisher & Paykel appliances, and we had to swap one every week. That's really my only appliance opinion, and all the other brands are okay. My one concern with front loaders is the washing machine's front gasket. These gaskets can have varying concentrations of organic and synthetic rubber, but most will grow mold if they are not allowed to dry out with the door open. If this mold can't be cleaned off, the replacement process for the gasket is pretty long, difficult, and requires unstacking the machines.